especially with social media, is people constantly and are feeling the anxiety of performing in front of 1 billion people. People feel like they're in the dead center in the middle of a stadium. Everybody's looking at them and judging them all the time. Anxiety is a signal that something is unsafe. But in modern times, that signal is being shut off even when there's no danger. We're meant to live in much smaller communities where we were exposed to much greater physical dangers for 100,000 years before we became quote-unquote civilized and created cities. We're pretty much like a smoke alarm that's detecting smoke when there's no smoke. What do? We try to put a lid on it, medicate or distract from it, whether it's grabbing our phones, whether it's smoking a cigarette, whether it's distracting ourselves with television, whatever it is, we're trying to cope with these feelings. We should be focusing on our mental fitness, which is voluntarily doing hard things when you don't have to do them, to build that strength and that capacity. And then when you build that capacity, when things happen that you didn't sign up for, you have the ability to do it. You look at your phone. Takes your phone to the bathroom. For one day, just don't take your phone to the bathroom. When you're sitting on the toilet or whatever, you're going to feel the anxiety rise. If somebody always has to eat in front of the TV, just eat in silence one time. You're going to feel the anxiety rise. We do these things because that's the safety is in the distraction. It's like, no, we're going to go to 3 separate parties, 3 separate costumes, 3 separate pictures. For who?
For social media.
Which is everyone doing everything on extremes. Everybody's sitting in an ice bath. Everybody lying down in the middle of the street, but they're all doing it for the content. Because they themselves are addicts. Because what they want is to feel seen, but what social media has created is mix it up with feeling admired. But we're just not recognizing that the price that we're paying is our mental health. If we do this interview and you don't go sit quietly every day for 10 minutes, then this interview is useless. My book is useless, right? And that concept is called agency.
Welcome to the Rising Immigrant Show. I'm your host, Jasmine Kaur, and today I'm honored to have a very inspiring guest with me, Kanwer Singh, most popularly known as Humble the Poet. Kanwer was born and raised in Toronto to Punjabi immigrant parents. From elementary school teacher to spoken word artist, rapper, and now an international best-selling author, his journey has been nothing but ordinary. His work speaks of self-trust, mental health, well-being, and growth. He's written 4 major books, and today we're going to discuss his latest book, Unanxious. In our conversation, we're also going to dive into his roots, his immigrant experience, mental health in our community, anxiety, the hustle culture, and the epidemic that is going today, phones and technology. So allow me to welcome Kanwer. Kanwer, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you're here.
I also just want to point out you're like literally one of the first people to ever just pronounce my name
Right?
correctly. My own sisters still don't.
Really?
Yeah. So whenever I hear it, it's normally when I'm getting in trouble.
Yeah, I grew up in Punjab, so it was a popular name back home.
I usually have to spell it in
actually really
Punjabi
like
for
the
people
name.
to understand. Yeah.
Good. I'm so happy that you're here today.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, congratulations on an amazing book.
Thank
I
you.
read it cover to cover, and I got a lot out of it, and I hope we can share that today with the audience. Let's start from the very beginning. Where were you born? Where did you grow up? What was life like as a child?
Yeah, I was born in Toronto on the west side, in a borough of Toronto called Etobicoke, and then grew up in a smaller borough within that borough called Rexdale. And that's pretty much, Toronto being one of the most multicultural cities on earth, that's kind of where the multicultural begins to end, and then it gets really South Asian after that. So, like, I lived a 5-minute walk to the Welcome to Toronto sign, and then after that, you would have the famous Malton, Brampton, Saga, all of that. It was right beside. My parents came in the 70s, and they had an arranged marriage in Canada, and then I was born in the 80s. And Rexdale is a really interesting neighborhood. It's extremely diverse. Yeah. And, very, especially considered, with a lot of the American Desis I meet, the stories seem to be the opposite. Everybody out here talks about, like, I was the only brown kid in my school. And I was just like, that's only the white people would say that, right? There's like 3 white people in our schools.
I know. I'm very familiar with the area. Yeah. I worked in Mississauga for a couple of years before I moved here to the States. And it's very brown.
Yeah, it's extremely, it's South Asian and it's Caribbean and now it's just very East African as well. So you just have these, and it's got a lot of mixes that way, and it's like, there's neighborhoods where the food plazas, I guess it'd be very similar to like Queens in New York. And I grew up like that, and in some ways that's much what the future of the rest of the world is going to end up looking like when everybody mixes up. And allowed myself to have all the influences of all the different cultures that influenced me at that point. And my father, typical story of an overeducated immigrant with a master's degree, came there and started driving a cab. And my mom worked in a factory, and they, I have two older sisters, and they figured out, they did the responsible adult thing, and responsible immigrant thing, and saved up and got the house and got it all set up.
And you followed a non-linear path.
Well, no, I followed a very linear path until I didn't. So,
Talk to me about it.
I went to school. I have 2 university degrees. I got a job as a school teacher. I did all this stuff. Then I left.
Why did you leave?
I think there's just a couple of things you start to realize. It's like, your parents, all immigrant parents want their kids to be safe and secure.
Sure. Yeah.
That doesn't mean the parents understand what safety and security is. And I think, when I began teaching, one of the first things I learned is in teaching, you have a hierarchy just in terms of when you were hired. Whenever you were hired is your place in seniority. You're given a number.
Yeah.
Anybody hired before you is above you. Anybody hired after you is below you. That's the seniority works. And then one teacher explained to me, she goes, when they did budget cuts one year, they fired 10 years worth of teachers.
Oh, wow.
Like if you were hired within the past 10 years, you got fired. So you start to realize like, oh, this is a government job and it's not safe. And then slowly just things started to reveal to me, which was just like, all the things that we think represent safety and security, a career, a certain job path, a certain amount of money. It's not. And the best way to keep yourself safe is to voluntarily, when things are safe, put yourself in unsafe situations, which is, entrepreneurship, going out on your own.
Yeah, but it's not for everybody.
Huh?
It's not for everybody.
I disagree.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you think that?
I think there's just infinite things on this planet to explore. I think not everybody figures out their thing. Not everybody crosses paths with their thing. Like I remember the moment, I went to a small city outside Toronto called Hamilton with my friend to go watch this rap concert for this guy. There's like 30 people in the room, and then his opening act was a spoken word poet. And the first time I ever heard spoken word poetry, and I was like, this is my thing. Had I not gone to that, I would have never known. Right? And then nothing is the same. And it wasn't a passion, it was an obsession. So I think, most people who are in the entrepreneurial space, they're not chasing a passion, they're honoring an obsession. And it's not something they're choosing to do, it's something that would probably kill them if they didn't do it. It would eat away at them. And I think very often that's kind of the disconnect when we say it's not for everybody. I think when people figure out their thing, then they're like, I am totally fine being 35 years old, sleeping on a couch to do this. I remember seeing an interview with Jerry Seinfeld, him saying, look, I didn't care if I had to eat cereal for dinner. I just wanted to tell jokes. Like he felt the victory was in the work. When you feel the reward is in the work, like actually in the work, and getting to do the work feels like play, and that's the joy that it brings you, then you found your thing.
Right.
And I think it's really just a matter of people not getting an opportunity to find their thing.
And it's also because we are constantly bombarded with so many different ideas and distractions. Jumping up to your book, Unanxious, you've had 3 books before this. Talk to me about how did this book come to you? How did you start writing?
So before this, I had a book about love. And, you write a book and you have to promote a book. That's the 2 things. It's like every entrepreneur, you create, you sell. Those are the 2 skills you need to have. And in writing a book, I'm peeling off my skin to make this as vulnerable as possible. And then you give it in for print. And the night I gave it in for print, my editor, says, congratulations. It takes 3-4 months to print, but now let's start planting the seeds. Let's try to get you on the podcast. Let's get you doing that. And then I realized at that point, some of the easier asks, like some of the friends who have podcasts, who I just have to reach out to, and the questions will just be logistics, like when are you free?
Sure.
I was having trouble texting them. I was nervous. I was scared of hearing a no. And I was realizing a lot of it came from like where I was emotionally after finishing the book. And I realized what was holding me back was anxious feelings. And it wasn't getting easier. And then even after, a good example would have been Jay Shetty at that point. And, you know, he would always have me on the show. And I was still struggling to be like, well, you know, his show's getting really big. Maybe I'm not somebody he wants on the show anymore. And we had a conversation. He goes, listen, man, like, I'm here to serve. You're here to serve. This is your time to serve. And then when I need help from you, I ask you for help. And it might be a different type of help. It might just be your company. It might just be you showing up somewhere. I mean, you know, because I don't have a big podcast. I don't do podcasts. And it made me realize that there was a big disconnect between like what my brain understood and what my body was reacting to. My brain understood this is my friend. I'm safe. I can do this. And my body was like, no, this isn't safe. And it was keeping me from sending the text. It was filling me up with that adrenaline and cortisol. And I really wanted to have a deeper understanding of what this was. And you quickly realize with all the, you know, kind of social media therapy talk, that we're kind of doing a disservice by not having an actual understanding of what anxiety and anxious feelings are. Like we use statements like I'm anxious, you know.
So the term anxiety is thrown around, right? Can you explain it in simple terms? What does it mean? Why it might be even important for us?
Anxiety is a signal that something is unsafe. But in modern times, that signal is being shut off even when there's no danger. All right?
How come? Explain.
Because we're not living in a society and in a world that we're meant to live in. You know, we're meant to live in much smaller communities where we were exposed to much greater physical dangers for 100,000 years before we became quote unquote civilized and created cities and all of this type of stuff. So our environment evolved much quicker than our biology.
Right.
So what it is we're pretty much like a smoke alarm that's detecting smoke when there's no smoke. Right? It's detecting steam and thinking it's smoke. And then the anxious feelings that we have, which is a rise of adrenaline and cortisol, you know, makes us think we're in danger. And that's when we go through the various systems in the polyvagal system, which is fight or flight, freeze, fawn, or feel actual safety. So that's what it is. So it's kind of like, it's a signal like hunger. Like hunger tells you like, hey, put food into your body.
Sure.
We don't look at ourselves as broken when we feel hungry. And we don't try to cure our hunger. We just address it.
Exactly.
You know,
yeah.
I'm hungry. And now we can all understand. Sometimes we feel hungry. We get the signal for hunger, but it's not hunger.
Feeling.
We don't make it our personality.
Right.
Right?
But we make anxiety our personality.
Yeah. We need to treat anxiety like how we treat hunger. It's a signal. It's telling you to pay attention to something. Right? It's you know, if it's your smoke alarm going off, it's telling you to look for the smoke. It's not telling you to rip the battery out of the smoke alarm. You know, if it's your car telling you have a flat tire, look for the flat tire. Don't put tape over the light. And it's that simple idea that I think has changed everything, because we think something's wrong with us for feeling this way. We take a lot of personal ownership over it, when really it's just there to warn us. And what we have to realize is, A, it's here to warn us. B, it's not doing a good job of warning us of actual danger. Right? Because right now in this modern world, its definition is it uncomfortable? That's dangerous. Is it unfamiliar? That's dangerous.
Can you give me an example?
You're at a party. You don't know anybody. You know, your adrenaline goes up. It's an unfamiliar situation, and your body gives you anxious feelings, making you feel like you're in danger. Right? Or even positive. It doesn't have to be negative things. You know, something really good happens to you. You get really good news. Your body, that's an unfamiliar situation. Your body thinks that's danger, and it fills you up. Same thing with adrenaline and cortisol. You know, the sensation is the same. The meaning we give it, which is what we call a feeling, that's the only difference. And then we still have to and then what we end up doing is try to soothe that. It's like our volcano's about to erupt. And what do? We try to put a lid on it, and we try to dampen it down. And that's when we do different things to avoid, medicate, or distract from it. Whether it's grabbing our phones, whether it's smoking a cigarette, whether it's distracting ourselves with television, whether it's talking a lot, whatever it is, we're trying to cope with these feelings.
Right.
Because we think these feelings are dangerous. Our body thinks they're dangerous, even if our brain knows there's no actual physical danger. And what we have to do is just feel them. Like, let that volcano erupt, express, let it happen, show your body that it's not dangerous.
Got it.
And the more that we do that, the more our body will realize certain things aren't dangerous. And, a great example of this is if I told you to like stand up, close your eyes and fall back. Even if your brain's like, he's a trustworthy person, your body,
Not doing that.
thinking about it, your body tenses up, right? But now imagine, let's say you do it.
Right.
And you fall and I catch you. Now we have proof that I can catch you. Your body's still not going to trust it. We'll probably have to do it like 10 times. That is the work that we have to do to address anxious feelings. You just have to do the work. You have to voluntarily put yourself in these uncomfortable situations until your body learns that this is not danger. This isn't actual danger. Yes, we need adrenaline and cortisol when we're in danger. We need it to react if a bear is chasing us or if we're about to get in a car accident or if something else is happening.
Sure.
But those situations aren't happening very often now. But they were happening very often a long time ago.
Right.
And we have to realize we're still designed for a long time ago.
So we have to understand the difference between perceived threats, as you write in the book, versus a real threat.
Yeah.
Right? And if someone finds themselves in a fight or flight mode, what can we do in that moment?
Step one is always going to be just to recognize it. Like, I'm in fight or flight. And again, you can't control this. Like, nobody decides to be afraid. Right? So when you're in these situations, and again, let's not put it in something, like completely dangerous, like somebody puts a gun to your face. But even let's just say a stranger walks up to you and is trying to sell you something, and you just get nervous and you're trying to be polite and you're just like, I'm sorry.
Or
no,
even
thank
an
you, whatever.
uncomfortable conversation at a workplace or with,
Conversation at
a
work.
family member.
Yeah. Or if you see something happening, you see an argument, all of it, just your body tenses up and it freezes, right? Freezes playing dead.
We hear news from like far away.
Yeah, absolutely.
We really absorb that and sort of take that in as, anxiety.
And it's levels. So it's just like if you've never been exposed to that specific thing, your body will freeze, right? If you had a little bit of exposure, then your body will go to fight or flight, right? If you had a lot of exposure to it, then your body won't react, right? So it's like the first time you want to fall back on me, you're going to freeze. If you get through it, then you go to fight or flight. Then eventually you'll feel safe, right? But the only way to get to that safety, you have to earn that safety, is through exposure. So these things that we call triggers, these are the things that we have to lean into to gain safety. Right now, we're in a culture where everybody's trying to avoid their triggers, telling people, don't trigger me. And it's like, no, your triggers are a roadmap to all your growth. Whatever is triggering you is what you should be running towards when you're already in a safe position. It's just like working out. So what we call mental health, we should really focus on is call it mental fitness. We should be focusing on our mental fitness, which is voluntarily doing hard things when you don't have to do them to build that strength and that capacity. And then when you build that capacity, when things happen that you didn't sign up for, you have the ability to do it. It's like go to the gym, work out, so then you can help your friend move a couch. Because if you try to move a couch without ever going to the gym, you'll get injured.
It's never going to work.
If you try to deal with a difficult situation emotionally and mentally without ever practicing it beforehand, you're gonna end up with a wound.
But don't you think we are all working towards building a life of convenience and comfort? We avoid hard things. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, 100%. Well, that's capitalism, right? We're in the buy shit, be happy, time of life. And the easiest product to sell people is convenience and ease, right? But we don't realize we're paying a different price for it, right? So, when things are hard, you're paying with effort, and the reward you're getting is resilience and strength. And what happens when things are easy, you're paying with your mental health, your mental fitness. When everything is easy, if everything's being done for you, then you're developing atrophy. It's kind of like if there's a butterfly, if there's a caterpillar in a cocoon, and it's struggling to get out. That process is part of the natural process. It needs to develop the muscles slowly to like push itself out of that cocoon. If you cut the cocoon open for it to help it get out, it'll never have the muscles to fly. Convenience is shrinking our muscles so we can't handle stuff. And this is done by design because it keeps us addicted to whatever the thing is that's convenient and makes us feel safe. So what we've been doing now is, because it's all about safety, we've been outsourcing all our safety. We've been looking for safety outside of us. And whenever we look for safety outside of us, it owns us. It hijacks us.
How do we do that? Give me an example.
Whenever you're feeling anxious, you look at your phone.
Oh, I do.
Like
100%.
if somebody takes their phone to the bathroom, for one day, just don't take your phone to the bathroom when you're sitting on the toilet or whatever, you're going to feel the anxiety rise. If somebody always has to eat in front of the TV, just eat in silence one time. You're going to feel the anxiety rise. We do these things because that's the safety is in the distraction, right? And now those things own us. That's what addiction is, right? A craving is a memory of comfort, right? So we're chasing that comfort, but we're getting it in little spikes, right? And we can continually need it from the outside world. It's no different than being addicted to cigarettes, alcohol, or anything else. These are all just ways to make us feel safe, right? But if we do it internally, like I'm going to sit here, I'm going to let all those chemicals rise, it's going to feel like shit. That's the training. And eventually your body gets used to it and you build more capacity.
Got it.
And that's what we have to do to be able to handle this life that we live in.
So in your book, you called phones as digital pacifiers. Can you elaborate how they act as one?
Yeah, so phones are giving us dopamine spikes, right? It's just constant distractions, it's constant dopamine.
What's dopamine for anybody who doesn't know?
Dopamine is a chemical that keeps you moving. It keeps you motivated. It keeps you going. It's like the reward center. So it's like when you make progress in something, dopamine gets you to keep going, right? So often we think we have to feel motivated to get started. And it's like, no, you have to get started to feel motivated. Getting started will trigger the dopamine.
But isn't it the reverse narrative that we've been fed? We've been fed that you need to hear X number of podcasts, read books, qualify to be able to take that first leap.
I'm not super concerned with these concepts of like narratives and being fed, because we decide our algorithms, we decide what we watch. Yes, very smart people have designed this stuff to make it addictive, but this idea, those are all coping as well. So again, it's like to start something new is to be in an unfamiliar space. Your body thinks it's dangerous. So what do? You cope. You find something to pacify, to make it feel better. So what you do is you say, I'm not ready. Let me just go in a loop of thought. Or let me overthink. Let me watch another podcast. Let me do all of this. So what you realize very quickly is Nike figured it out. Answer is always just do it. Just do it. It's just action, right? Everything else is just noise. But again, there's nothing wrong with the fact that we're uncomfortable and we're afraid and we're scared and we're going to overthink. All of this, because we're doing it and we're not aware that we're doing it. Most often these are reactions. They're not responses. A response is when you do it intentionally. A reaction is when it happens automatically. All of these habits that we have were developed when we were young. And we didn't have the capacity to understand what was going on. We were just trying our best to survive. Most of what our personalities are just us trying to feel safe in the world. And that's what it's an armor or a fortress that we built to protect ourselves. But the older we get, we start to realize that this armor and these fortresses are really prisons. And, that's where we have to start unlearning. So we have to start breaking some of this stuff down because we realize it doesn't serve us in the life that we want to actually live. So dopamine, so here's the whole thing is like dopamine is a good thing to feel when you generate it internally. When you generate it externally, now it's just a drug that you're hooked on. And as I said, like to be on the phone and to be addicted to your phone, at the very least should make you have more empathy for people who have any type of addiction. It's no different than being addicted to heroin or alcohol or drugs or anything else like that. It's the same loop. It's the same process. And now we're just in a society where certain addictions are completely socially acceptable. It's socially acceptable for me to say, hey, I can't start this interview until I have my coffee.
Yep.
Right? Coffee is the most abused drug on earth. Right? And it's an hallucinogen. It's a class 2 hallucinogen. Like this is just facts, but it's socially acceptable. You're allowed to stand in line for it, pay money for it. It's an addictive drug. Right? But then saying, if I said the same thing about weed, or if I said the same thing about something else, it'd be a whole different conversation. This goes to what society encourages.
Accepts, yeah.
But the other issue with that is we give value to what society says because we are programmed to be in these smaller social situations where a society of 200 people, their opinions mattered. That's where Loki Kange came from. When our parents say Loki Kange, because they came from small communities. They grew up in small villages. Yeah. And they knew the faces of every single person in that village.
Right.
So Loki can't get mattered. The opinions of people mattered. But when you're in Manhattan, you have, millions of people. The opinions of other people don't matter. And nothing is done for the betterment of society. It's all done for the betterment of the economic engine of society. Right? So when people say something is socially acceptable, what they're really saying when you dig underneath the surface is good for the economy. Right? It's not good for the people. It's good for the economy. And then that's where we're at right now, where we start to look at things that are right or wrong purely based off what's socially acceptable and what's not. But it's like a few hundred years ago, it was socially acceptable to have slaves. You know what I mean? In some parts of the world, that's still socially acceptable. You know what I mean? These things aren't changing. So this is where we have to start doing some critical thinking and paying attention to what's happening in the world and realize, like, look, the stories that have been told to me are not here for my benefit. they're not even here for the benefit of my community anymore. They're here for the benefit of this engine that's just going to keep moving, which is just trying to grow and consume as much as it can. Even at the expense of our health, our environment, and, our physical and mental health.
So, low-key kenge.
Yeah.
It's a big deal in our community. We try our best to fit in. Whether it's our clothes, it's our, choices, career choices, politics. We feel this compulsive need to fit in. Why do you think that is?
Again, it's not our fault. And nor are we victims. As I said, we, as human beings, for the vast majority of the generations that we existed, no matter what ethnicity you are, we spent most of our time in small communities. And when you're in a small community, the needs of the community should be more important than yours.
Right.
If you're in a village of 150, 200 people, yeah.
Because that's what you needed to survive, right?
This is what you needed to survive. And keeping the village happy meant you got to survive in the village. Because if you'd pissed off the village, they could kick you out. You'd be ostracized from the village. So rejection from people, disappointment from people actually meant real death. If someone kicked you out of the village, now you had to fend for yourself, you were more likely to die. And, do that over 50, 60 generations, that fear gets wired into us. So the fear of disappointment feels like a death sentence. Now, we don't live in that society anymore, but that programming is still there. And this isn't programming that you can just meditate away. This is ingrained into us. You know what I mean? The same way we can't make ourselves stop blinking. You know what I mean? We can't control our heartbeat. This stuff is ingrained into us. The most we can do is we can recognize it and we can practice against it. We can be like, all right, I have to actively disappoint the people around me and see that I won't die. Right? That's really what it is. And I think this is an important thing for and I think this is the interesting thing too, where it's this isn't a Desi thing. This is everybody. This is everybody.
I feel like immigrant communities feel it more because we have this, lack of sense of belonging and we try harder to fit in. Do you think that's true?
I don't. I don't. I remember, I'm one of the rare Desis in the zeitgeist who has his reader base and his audience is not predominantly Desi. The people that consume my work are not Desi, and the work rarely mentions me being Desi. And I get invited to a lot of really interesting events, and when I hear everybody talking about that these events are the exact same things. They'll be like, something impacting our community is alcoholism. And I was like, oh, I thought that was only my people. Or people pleasing. Or, the struggles of fitting in. Or the struggles of not having your voice heard. And I think these are common human experiences that we...
So they're not limited to one specific community.
Again...
So it's all of us.
Well, even think about the way you framed it. You said immigrant community, right? So that would actually be the largest population on Earth. Anyone who's ever moved from somewhere to somewhere else is an immigrant, right? So that in itself kind of gives it. Where it's if you go somewhere new, and again, how do we define immigrant at this point? We say from country to country, but it's if you invite me to a party full of Punjabi Desis and I don't know anybody, I could feel like an immigrant. And now I'm like, I'm a guest in her house. I got to be quiet. I got to keep my voice down. I got to behave a certain way. I got to do whatever I can to fit into her party. That's a universal human experience, right? On top of that, the concept of fitting in now, especially with social media, is people constantly and are feeling the anxiety of performing in front of 1 billion people. People feel like they're in the dead center in the middle of a stadium. And everybody's looking at them and judging them all the time.
Is that true though?
It's not literally.
Because you spend a lot of time on social media as well. Do you feel that ways sometimes?
So I'm the one on social media who has the followers. I have a lot of followers, and I had to do the work not to feel that, right? But I've watched, I've been around people who, just from the choices they make, so for example, I have a friend in event planning, and it's the most important thing now when you plan an event is to have something people can take a picture with. There's no photo wall, and people have no reason to be at your event. Talking to a friend yesterday, they discussed having 3 Halloween costumes. I'm like, Halloween's only one night. It's like, no, we're going to go to 3 separate parties, 3 separate costumes, 3 separate pictures. And there's this curation for who?
For social media.
Which is for an audience, which is there's this belief that so many people are watching you, right? And they have this commitment, like people need to see what I'm doing. And I always find it hilarious because I'm like, you got like 1,200 people following you. Who is this audience? Meanwhile, a guy like me, has a much larger audience, and I post maybe once a month. And it's because you start to realize like this system, it's by design putting us back in these small villages, making us think we're in a small village when we're not.
So we're looking for validation online, but from a much bigger audience. Is that what you're trying to say?
We're avoiding that shitty feeling of we're going to die. When we disappoint somebody, it actually feels like we're getting a death sentence. Like it actually does. And I don't blame anybody for not wanting to disappoint people because that's ingrained into us. You can't outgrow it. You can't listen to an inspirational podcast and make it go away. This is in us, right? It's in our programming. That's why we people please. All of this is to create safety. If I make them happy, I'll feel safe.
Right.
If if they pay attention to me, I feel safe. If they validate me, I feel safe. If I do this interview and people say nice things about me in the comments, I'll feel safe. It's all about that safety, and it's outsourcing it. The safety can only happen outside of me, which is the drug. Anytime you have to do it outside of you, now it's hijacking. Now you are a hostage to it. When the work has to be creating that safety from the inside, which is let me disappoint everybody, and now just sit here quietly, let all those feelings come. And maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes of just sitting quietly, you start to notice they go away. I'm not saying they fully go away, but they start to go away. And it just shows you, like, oh, wait a minute. The secret to this is doing nothing, right? And just sitting in the storm, like letting the storm happen and realizing the storm doesn't cause as much damage as you think. And every time, the longer I sit in the storm, the longer I can sit in the storm. And that's where a lot of these ideas happen. The thing that's unique to us and in certain immigrant communities is that we can see the last time we were in these small villages.
Yeah.
Like I can't argue with my parents. My parents were in the villages of the 150.
Mine are still there.
Yeah, exactly.
Mine are still there.
But every ethnicity on this planet, they go far enough back, and I mean probably 150 years max. Because even in the United States, there were smaller towns, smaller neighborhoods, smaller communities, right? That's the wiring that we've been doing for the past 50, 60 generations. This concept of being in big cities, this is only 2, 3, 4 generations max, anywhere on the planet. So I'm saying, like, we're operating on a different operating system compared to the world that we're in. And that's not going to change anytime soon. Like human biology, it takes hundreds of thousands of years for any changes to happen. So we just have to recognize this, that we're a square peg living in a circle world, and it's not going to fit. And the more we try to make it fit, the more pain we're going to feel. So let's first recognize it, accept it, and make the small adjustments, which are going to be a daily battle. But that's the same thing like going to the gym. You got to go every day.
So how do we break this cycle and how do we fully embrace it?
I don't think there's a fully embracing. So I think with a lot of the work that I've done, I'll give you an example. So I said, okay, cool. Let me just do the obvious sources of safety. I'm gonna quit, right? So alcohol, drugs, television, social media, everything that is just outwardly safety that I'm aware of, I'm gonna stop. 30 days. Let's see what happens. Did 30 days, and then first it obviously sucked because your body, you're like a addict. You go through withdrawal, right? Yeah. And then you start to realize which ones were more intense than others, which ones you had a relationship with versus which ones you just did, but you didn't have a relationship. Like I don't have an emotional relationship with food. I don't have that. So this wasn't an addiction. If I'm having a bad day, I don't run to food to feel better. I don't say, oh, you had a bad day, let's eat some pizza. Like that's not me.
That's me.
Yeah. For me, but it might have been a movie. Now it's like I'm having a bad day. I can't turn to that movie. Oh, I can't call some girl. I can't do all these things. I got to sit with it, right? So you start to learn. Then you start to realize your body, which is clever, it finds new ways to find relief. right? So now it's new ways like, oh, let's start, So then I started realizing, oh, it was in rehearsing conversations in my head or replaying past moments of like victory or fantasizing about certain things. Like, oh, once day 31 happens, what am I going to do, right? I always remember this, like, when you're a kid and your bicycle tire has a hole in it, you fill it up with air, you put it under water, and you look for the bubbles, right? So that's what this whole journey was. I found the big bubbles were like, yeah, alcohol. I plugged those all up. Then you see little bubbles. Oh, rehearsing, fantasizing, replaying, right? Or, using the bathroom. Or, just being in a city like New York. You just go outside and get distracted. Just stare at people.
Yeah.
Right? That's all still, it's helping me avoid what's happening on the inside. I ended up going from 30 days, I ended up doing 90 days. Because you realize very quickly, biologically, physically, all the stuff that I thought was hard, your body gets used to very quickly. Emotionally, so 30 days wasn't difficult. So I went to 90 days for all the physical stuff. Emotionally, 90 days isn't enough because you're trying to reprogram decades of work. And then you realize you can't reprogram it. I can't reprogram my whole system, but I can reset it. All I can do is reset it and get my baseline anxious feelings lower. So think about it this way. It's like, imagine you were driving here and you skip breakfast, so you're hungry. You're already irritable. Now someone cuts you off. So let's say you're already 5 out of 10 irritable. Somebody cuts you off, that adds 3, you're at 8. Then something else happens, you pass 10, now you explode. But imagine you had a big breakfast. Now you're calm, you're at 2. Someone cuts you off, it creates less damage. We're walking around with a baseline level of anxiety, right? And that comes from waking up in the morning, looking at your phone first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
Drinking coffee on an empty stomach.
Yeah.
Not getting enough sleep. Not drinking enough water. Being around people you should not be around. A lot of this, So there isn't embracing anything. There's just recognizing the relationship between what you do and how you feel. And it's not always on you. Like, life is going to cut you off. Bad things are going to happen. Surprise bills are going to come out of the way. There's going to be a death in the family. There's going to be bad news. There might be some political stuff that hurts you.
Sure.
But what are you doing to prepare yourself for that? Are you drinking enough water? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you being around people that give you energy instead of draining you? All of that matters just as much. That's actually building up your life raft or your life jacket so you can float in all this shit that life is creating. Because the other issue with all this anxiety is that we look at it as an individual problem, right? Like you feel like, oh, I struggle with anxiety. And it's like, no, this is a societal problem. The society that we live in is a big dumpster fire. It's designed to harm our mental health, right? So the solutions are going to be societal. You can't do it by yourself. And it's very clear that this profit-driven society does not prioritize our mental health, so it's not going to. So we have to do it by ourselves, but then be around people who are also like that. And we have to start going back to building community. Because that's going to be the biggest thing to help us. We're meant to be in small communities. We don't have any community. You think about it, for most people, it's like they're told, go to school, get your job, find a partner, get married, have kids. All of these choices end up shrinking your world. It's not like you when you get married, the biggest community you establish is just your partner's family.
Yeah.
That's not community. That's just more people that have a blood relationship. There's not a commonality that was created. It's not like you went out. And
So how does one find their community?
So what did we have? And I have a chapter about it called Third Spaces. We had 2 spaces that were very well used for a long time, which was like the religious centers and the bar. Right? Now, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but less people prescribe to religion and go to these religious centers, whether it's a temple, mosque, synagogue, whatever, and less people drink. But these were the 2 third spaces that we would go to have community. Where it's like, all right, this isn't work, this isn't home, this is where I find my people. Right? Instead, the vast majority of people live in the suburbs in these beautifully decorated prisons where they may not even know their next door neighbor's name or what's happening behind those walls. We're all separate. We don't have the open concept village anymore. where everybody was raising your kids.
Yeah.
Everybody's child was your child.
I was just talking to my mother-in-law about this morning, and we were sitting at the breakfast table, and I said, I remember elders in the family sitting under a tree, board de thalle baith ke gallan karde si na. They used to play cards. They used to just sit there, no devices, nothing, just be, right? Sit. That was so healing. I felt like that sort of healed your nervous system. And although it's really mocked, we usually try to make fun of them, say like inna kol koi kam nahi hai, ye sare vadde bande hain, ye sare ped de thalle baithe hain. And I was telling her, I said, I somehow want to do that now. I don't know if it's just me getting older, but I see so much value in it. What do you have to say about that?
So I think there's two things. I think the first thing is, I think it's very important for us not to use the languages of healing. Like heal our mental health. Our mental health it's not skin. You can't rip it. You can't heal it. It's not wounds. All we're doing is developing patterns, right? Something happens and our brain tries to figure out how to feel safe. Because again, sometimes there's no real danger. So there's no real safety being established. We just develop a pattern, right? Like if somebody goes to punch you in your face, you close your eyes, right? That doesn't actually protect much. It just becomes a reaction, becomes a pattern of behavior, right? So what it is what you're talking about is we're regulating our nervous system. As I said, if our volcano's almost at the tip, regulating it is just allowing it to come right back down naturally, not outsourcing it. 3 shots of tequila will bring it back down temporarily. But if we just sat quietly and did nothing long enough, it'll come back down. And that's what you're talking about.
Am I hearing that boredom might actually be good?
What we refer to as boredom is going to be our liberation. It's just the act of doing nothing, right? We're constantly stimulated. We're constantly distracted.
I actually don't know how to do it.
I don't
know how to do it.
So the big issue with when people talk about meditation is just like meditation. You shouldn't be able to ask yourself, "Am I doing this right?" Like just sit and do nothing. Like sit, do nothing. That's it.
I feel like it's easier said than done. I've
everything
tried multiple
on earth.
times.
Everything on earth is easier said than done. If I say pick up the can, it's easier to say pick up the can than it is to actually pick up the can. What on earth isn't easier said than done? Like this, you know what I mean? That's a defense mechanism that doesn't make sense. Everything is easier said than done. And it's supposed to be hard. It's training. You're training yourself. The same way you go to the gym, the same way you go for a run. If it was an easy day at the gym, it wasn't a good day. So sitting there quietly and it's supposed to suck.
So hard. It's
supposed to. It's supposed to suck. It's the only... Listen, you're talking about this is for entrepreneurs. This is for big thinkers, big dreamers. It has to be hard. If it's not hard, then why are we doing it? Now, you don't have to force yourself to do it for an hour. You can start 30 seconds. Today, start 30 seconds. Tomorrow, do a minute. Then a minute 30. If that's too much, start 10 seconds. 10 seconds today, 20 seconds tomorrow. Where will you be in a month? Right? And you're training your body. You can't skip shades in this gradient. You have to do it with the baby steps to the baby tiptoes. And I think that's the important part to look at this. It's just the art of doing nothing. And what you talk about with them sitting under the tree is just them doing nothing. The difference with them is they were not exposed to as much as we were. We romanticized their life, which we shouldn't, because there's other problems in those villages, right? But they're not exposed to the stuff that we're exposed to. You know what I mean? Like they didn't have social media.
Right.
You know what I mean? They weren't, their marriages weren't being tested looking at all these pretty girls on Instagram. They didn't have any of that stuff. They're not better than us. They were just dealing with different things. And we romanticize their life for some reason because we think it's simple, but we're only remembering the certain parts of it, And that phone, that technology that we're viewing as the enemy is the reason we're having this conversation. It's the reason that this conversation can cross an ocean in an instant and someone can find value in it. Right? So there's pros and cons to all of this. And we just have to get out of these mindsets of like judging everything, because judgment in itself is a language of fear. Whenever you judge, you're speaking the language of fear. You have to speak the language of courage, which is curiosity. And the best way to show that you're courageous is to ask questions. How can I do this? How can I make this work? This is hard as a judgment. How can I handle this today? How much of it can I handle today? 10 seconds? Cool, let's do it. That's courage. That's curiosity. That's the important part when we need to approach all of this. Because otherwise, again, a lot of this, and you realize this, as you go through it, you're like, oh, what I'm really addressing is just stories that were told to me over and over and over. And I just believe that that's the script for life. which is fine because for a lot of times, us as a society and as a population and as a species, there wasn't a lot of evolution. But things moved very quickly after industrialization. And that only happened like 100, 150 years ago. Before that, these slow stories mattered. They worked. People were in small populations. Now we're in these mega cities with millions and millions of people. You know, you can move 3 blocks away from where you live right now and never see the same faces ever again. Right? But again, we're still dealing with the same internal programming that makes us think that we're in a small village of 150 people. If anybody's disappointed in you, that's death. If anybody rejects you, that's death. And your body, the only way for your body to feel safe in that is for you to show it. All right, today let's go talk to a stranger. Let's just ask for directions. Let's just compliment somebody's outfit. I'm not saying walk up to the most beautiful person you know and try to get their phone number. I'm just saying start with little things to expose your body to it. You know, and again, we're competing with what we see on social media, which is everyone doing everything on extremes. Everybody's sitting in an ice bath. Everybody lying down in the middle of the street, but they're all doing it for the content because they themselves are addicts, and because what they want is to feel seen, but what social media has created is mixed it up with feeling admired. So even if their brain understands, listen, if I make a video and nobody watches it, that's not even people choosing or not choosing to watch it because we're all just scrolling. It's an algorithm. An algorithm isn't even real. An algorithm is just a program. And that algorithm is just trying to figure out where this belongs. It couldn't figure it out, so it didn't share it with anybody. So now we're trying to make this invisible thing happy. It's just like we're back in the Greek god times. We're making sacrifices, but we're just not recognizing that the price that we're paying is our mental health. And it's like this stuff, and this stuff's not going to go away. You know, people would be better off without their phones. People would be better off with half the things that we're using in the society, but that's not going to go away. I still have a addictive relationship to caffeine, but I think the difference is moving forward with a awareness of it is step one.
Right.
Just
knowing what's causing it, knowing what's going on around you is the first step. And then sort of, once you've identified, sort of trying to reclaim control over that.
And then sometimes identifying it allows you to reclaim control a lot more than you think. Sometimes, you know, what I realized, especially going through that 90 days of living like a monk, you know, I thought it would be significantly more difficult than it actually was. Because then you start to pick up on things that are triggering. Because what happens is like you get a trigger of discomfort, then you have a craving, which is a memory of comfort, that you're going to chase that craving. Right? So the first thing that happens, you start realizing what things were triggering you that you didn't even realize. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. I'm not watching any porn on television or on the internet, but I'm watching the news, and that in itself is a form of porn. Like, what do I need to know what's happening across the ocean endlessly? Endlessly. Why do I need to? At what time in human history has any person in my species had this much information bombarded to them all the time? Even before I've had a glass of water, first thing in the morning, right? And I bombarded myself with all this stuff. Or you have emails. I mean, what's an email? You know, your email is just one organized list of everybody else's priorities.
Right.
You know, everyone's just hitting you up with stuff. And for some reason, we think it's a personal failing. You know, I saw a quote yesterday that said, even machines get tired, but they don't feel guilty. But we do. We feel guilty because we feel like we have to. And we've already set it up that way.
We feel like we need to earn our rest or earn a place to relax.
Or even earn a living.
Yeah.
Why do we have to earn a living? Like, when did things become that way? Like, you know, we're such a really interesting species where we've really flipped what this planet has become. And now we're suffering from it. And I think what's really interesting about this too is like it's a great equalizer because money doesn't fix this. Having a lot of money is not going to make somebody less addicted to their phone. Having a lot of money does not protect somebody from rage, outrage, clickbait, you know, all of these external things that they rely on safety. It does not protect them. So this isn't something where you're like, oh, the billionaires have it better. No, they're just as hooked. Their mental health is just as the rest of ours. And it's a conversation that's not being had because most of the people that are doing this type of work are too busy doing the work and not having the conversations.
Right.
And I think, and as I said, and even this conversation at some point has to like get certain numbers for the world to see it, for people to want to watch it. And you got to say certain things to be clicked on it. But what ends up becoming important is just like, you know, the vast majority of people that even see 5 seconds of this are just going to scroll to the next thing. and the next thing and the next thing. And
Yeah.
you can only meet people where they are. And that's just part of the stuff.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if somebody sees it for 3 seconds and then they have to wait 5 years for it to actually make sense to them, when they realize like, all right, I promised myself that once I get this job, everything will be good. Once I make my parents happy, everything will be good. Once I have my kids,
So we're
everything will be
constantly
good.
chasing the next goal, the next thing, the next
It's
thing.
outsourcing. We're
Yeah.
constantly chasing outsourcing. And the true rule is if you're not happy with what you have, you won't be happy with what you get. You know? And again, I'm not trying to be like deeply philosophical. If you're struggling to like put food in your stomach, find some money and make that happen.
Sure.
But most of us, especially people who are watching this interview on their own personal device, they're not in that situation.
Yeah.
You know, we have a lot more time, and it's just the spoiler alert is like if it's outside of you, it's never going to work. You know,
So it has to come from within.
it has to be, yeah. You have to harness it from within. Otherwise, you're being hijacked from without. And there's a comedian, George Carlin, he said it all the time. He goes, you know, trying to get this stuff outside of you to make you happy is like taping sandwiches to your body to address your hunger. You know, and that's kind of what we're doing. And I just think the important thing that I really want to iterate with this is nothing wrong with us for making these choices. There's nothing wrong with us for feeling anxious. There's nothing wrong with us for being scared. There's nothing wrong with us for overthinking. There's nothing wrong with us for people pleasing. There's nothing is wrong with this. I saw a t-shirt walking here today. It said, normal is just a setting on a washing machine. You know, there's just this belief, like, you know, people are going to watch this and think that I don't feel anxious feelings. I feel anxious feelings. Everybody feels anxious feelings. You're supposed to. That's what makes you a common person. It's part of the human experience. Anxious feelings is like hunger. Let's treat it like hunger. Let's stop acting like it's our personality. Let's stop thinking that we're broken and this is a defect just because we experience it. It's just we're experiencing it way more than we should. Because 100,000 years ago, it's what kept us safe. That paranoia kept us safe in the jungle. You know, that allowed us to be like, oh, there's noise coming from there. That might be danger. Let's run away. Even if we were wrong, we stayed safe. That paranoia doesn't keep us safe anymore. And as I said, and now
It does more harm than good now.
It does more harm than good, but then also it's just in this profit-driven world, very smart people have hijacked our need for safety to make money off of it. They've hijacked our need to belong. As I said, our need to fit in comes from avoiding rejection. But now what does that mean? That means buying the latest fashion accessory, right? That means watching the last thing that everyone's talking about on Netflix. All of this has become, you know what I mean? Things go viral. People are talking. This is what it's become now. People are participating in that because they don't want to feel left out. Because they don't, you know, and we call it FOMO.
Yeah.
Right? But it's the same thing. It's the idea that being left out it feels really gross, and I don't want to feel gross. And we don't know why it feels gross. It feels gross because being left out a long time ago meant you're going to die. Now it doesn't
mean that same.
Now we have to practice it. We have to actually practice it. We can't just say, and here's been the challenge, and this is, you know, probably why I won't write any more books, is because I can say a bunch of stuff that makes sense, and that just meets people here, right? That's called intellectual symmetry, right? It's like you say an inspiring quote, you say something that sounds really nice, and everyone's like, oh yeah, that feels good. And then, you know, they think they got it. But it's like, no, it doesn't matter here. It matters here. And that only matters through your action. If we do this interview and you don't go sit quietly every day for 10 minutes, then this interview is useless. My book is useless, right? And that concept is called agency. So there are words that just sound nice and they rhyme or they fit with your logic or they give you affirmation. But then there's words that actually create agency. And that's why, as I said, like, I'm not trying to plug Nike, but it's just, you realize they got it. Just do it.
Right.
That's it. Just do it. That's the best advice anybody can ever give you. You're afraid of FOMO? Just stay home. Sit with it. Sit with the FOMO and you'll notice instantly, like, oh, I'm going to turn on the TV.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And it was the same thing with me. If I had, you know, where I live is a busy neighborhood and I hear people outside. If I stay home on a Friday night, I'm hearing people have fun. That triggers more FOMO, which is an uncomfortable feeling. Then what do? I'll blast my television so I don't hear the people outside having fun. But I'm just distracting, avoiding, and medicating. What if I just
sit with the feeling?
Sit with it. Let it exist. It's called feeling your feelings. Let them exist. All we do is distract, avoid, and medicate our feelings. Feel the feeling, and it sucks. And I'll tell you this, this is me being 1,000% honest. I don't know what type of like physical exercise you do, but like for me, I've gone to the gym long enough where I enjoy the discomfort. I feel a burn, I enjoy it. You know, if I'm running for long, I do jujitsu, which is where the injury came from. I enjoy it. I actually look forward to it, even though it's physically uncomfortable. Right? I enjoy it. So I kept telling myself, I want to get to the point where I can enjoy these feelings. That way, like the idea,
The
like
discomfort, the feeling of
yeah,
discomfort.
because that feeling of discomfort means progress. Like if I sit there and I'm feeling FOMO and I feel that, you know, scientifically it's adrenaline and cortisol. As I feel it rise and it feels gross, I want to learn to love it, like the burning of my legs when I run. I'm not there. I've been doing this for 6 months. It's not there. I hate it. I hate it every single time. I'm not making progress every single day. I fall flat. All of this type of stuff. I'm still trying to figure, and maybe there isn't a way. I'm not going to promise you guys light at the end of the tunnel, but I'm just letting you know the only other option, for me at least, is I can't unring the bells of what I've learned about my addictions towards safety outside of me. So now whenever I do have a weekday and turn to something on the outside to feel safety, my brain knows what I'm doing. And that, you know, and that's more, and that's okay too. And so what you need here is you need, you know, consistency to stick with it, and compassion to be nice to yourself on that journey. Because some days you'll take 2 steps forward, some days you'll take 5 steps back, and that's okay. Just reminding yourself, judging yourself doesn't help.
Got it.
Being hard on yourself doesn't help. So if you say, all right, no more phones while I eat, and then the first day you do it and you feel great, second day you had a bad day, you pull up your phone and now you're flipping through Instagram. Fine. It's not pass or fail. It's
But at
you
least
did
try,
it.
yeah.
Try for half the time. If you catch yourself, all right, I'm going to put the phone away.
Yeah.
You know what? I don't want to rely on my willpower. Let me go put the phone in a whole different room. Let me put the phone in a safe. Let me let the phone battery die. Do all the things. I have 2 phones. I have one phone, which I carry, has no social media. It's in black and white, and that's it. And then I have another phone at home, which stays in my sock drawer, that has all the social media, all the junk food, all the stuff. And I'll check that maybe once a day. Right? But even then, if I'm home for a long period of time, I might catch myself doom scrolling.
Right.
Nobody is weak for doom scrolling. Like, this stuff was designed by very smart people, and they were paid by very rich people to do it. Like, this stuff is, you know what I mean? Like, this stuff is designed to be addictive. You're a regular human being if you find it addictive. It's like finding salt addictive or sugar. You know, this stuff is made to be addictive. So all we can do is make environmental changes to reduce it. And as you reduce it, your capacity increases. And when your capacity increases, you can handle more life.
And eventually gain control over our lives, you know. Hopefully.
I think, as I said, I don't think it's a switch. I don't think it's I have control, I don't have control. I think it's a dimmer. So I think we gain more control. And as long as we stay, it's like when you go to the gym, you get more fit and more healthy as you go to the gym. You take 3 months off, it'll go back the other way.
Yeah.
This is the same thing. Yeah. Right?
Well, I had a great time talking to you. I wish this could go on. Honestly, I feel like I need more time with you, but we're running out of time. So I'm going to end it at this. Thank you so much for sitting here today and sharing a piece of your mind with me. I really enjoyed reading this book. Honestly, I've held it close since the last few days since I first got it, and I reached out to you after I read it. And I hope that we can all sort of, identify our triggers. We can identify what's going on in our bodies and eventually reclaim some control and sort of gain that power back.
Yeah, I think, as I said, we're chasing progress, not perfection. And any progress, any size, that's all that matters. And I always think about, like, for those people listening who play video games, that's all you want is progress. You don't want to finish the video game because it's a waste of money if you just finished it. You want to slowly make progress. If it's too easy, it wasn't worth it.
Right.
It's treat this life just like that. It's supposed to be hard. You're supposed to make some progress. That progress will add up. And then one day, things that were super difficult won't be difficult anymore. But it just takes significantly longer than you ever expect. And most of the things that we ever did to establish progress happened when we were young. And we didn't know. We didn't realize they were teaching us how to read. Slowly over 10 years. Yeah. Or playing a piano or another instrument, or even walking or talking. All this happened naturally.
Over time, yeah.
And it's the same idea. As adults, there's no one there to force it to us. So what we have to do is do it ourselves. And the best way to do it is to do it through play. And going back to the entrepreneurship of it is if you discover what feels like play for you, but for everybody else it feels like work, then you found your thing. Like I have a friend, I think this is important. I have a friend who, just amongst the friends, we micro gamble with each other. Like, oh, let's play darts. The winner gets $1. And it's like 6, 7 friends. He has the most meticulous records of who owes who money.
Really?
Yeah. So in the beginning, I thought he was greedy, but then I really like, no, this man loves spreadsheets. Like I don't love spreadsheets. So
Me neither.
But that's his thing. He doesn't do this for a living, but I think he should. Because it's like I would, and when he got married, he organized his own bachelor party, and people ended up saving money. Like he collected money and gave money back at the end of the trip. Like he was so efficient and effective with this. That's his thing. That's not me. That may not be. Do you feel what I'm saying? It's like, and this is, I think this is important, especially for our youth, where we get so caught up in who we want them to be, and really who we want them to be is their most authentic self. So what we got to do is expose them to as much as possible until they fall in love. And maybe the first time your child meets a frog, like, this is my thing, frogs. And then they find something important with frogs that adds value to the world. For your other child, it might be bridges, or it might be rockets, or it might be computer programming, or it might be ballet, or it might be cleaning the water. Like, we don't know. And there's an endless amount of problems on this earth that need solving. We should find the people obsessed with that stuff. And we focus on what we're obsessed with. And then I think this world becomes a significantly better place.
Absolutely. On that note, thank you so much, Kanwer.
Thank you so much for
coming on the show.